Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another broadcast of The Weekly with me, Neff. Please subscribe to the channel. Share this video with some family members, friends, and colleagues. I appreciate the support. It is time for another think piece on this beautiful Sunday. Today, we're going to talk about why Jurassic World Rebirth beat Superman and Fantastic Four at the box office this summer. Still too early to tell for Fantastic Four first steps, but I think it's safe to say it is not going to outgross Jurassic World Rebirth. So let's jump into some points here. I'm going to discuss each of these points, kind of let you know the dynamic that's actually taking place right now this summer. Obviously, it's August, but July was heavily packed with a lot of competitive films, some good, some bad, but a lot of competition overall to get into the wallets of the families that went to theaters this year and to gain momentum within market share of the cinema. So let's jump into it. I've got one word for anybody that is listening to this out there right now: familiarity. I think familiarity is a big reason why Jurassic World Rebirth outperformed Superman and Fantastic Four first steps. Now, let me explain. Familiarity is very important when it comes to these three films. Obviously, they all came out in the span of a month of each other, correct? But with familiarity, you have Jurassic World. You're living off of a brand from Jurassic Park and the previous Jurassic World films, which all grossed over $1 billion. Jurassic World, to be specific, when I say $1 billion box offices, correct? And so you are having a reboot happening with this film because you are including Scarlett Johansson as a new character, Zora Bennett, right? You have Jonathan Bailey's character, you have Mahershala Ali, and everybody else that is there to support and cast. And so it's a hard reboot because I've heard from people that have seen this film, not anything that's really connected to the previous films, almost a standalone of itself within that franchise. And so, yeah, it qualifies as a hard reboot, but even with that being said, people still have good faith around this franchise. They know the brand. The brand has been around for 30 plus years. It's really not a lot of hard work that you have to do to get people to watch this film or even be curious about this film because, let's be honest, the dinosaurs are the key proponent of this film, not necessarily the people. And even with people that have seen this film, I haven't seen it, so I cannot judge it for myself. Even for people that have seen this film, they have stated that when they were focusing on the people, the human element, the connections between the characters that you're going to see going to the island, no one even really cared about it. They saw it as boring and they wanted to get to dinosaurs basically chomping on humans. And so, once again, you're not here for the people experience. You're here for the dino experience. And I think the familiarity of the brand itself, even though Dominion wasn't liked overall, I would say with that film making $1 billion, it actually says a lot about the audience. I think the critics hated it, but the audience didn't feel that it was that bad. And even with that film being looked at as a film that didn't stack up with Jurassic World or Fallen Kingdom, like I said, it made $1 billion at the box office. So that tells you it still has power to make money. Obviously, a different time. The economy's a little different, but it says a lot when the most hated Jurassic World film is still $1 billion hit at the box office. Now, how does familiarity play into DC Studios and Marvel Studios? Well, if you know anything about DC at this point in time, we've had an overhaul of leadership. James Gunn and Peter Safran are now basically, you could say, co-CEOs of DC Studios. David Zaslav is the head at Warner Brothers right now, but you had the DCEU prior, right? That regime didn't do well. You had a lot of flops, especially towards the end of that regime, at least 4 that didn't perform well. It kind of just fell apart at the seams. This would be referred to as the Snyderverse, ladies and gents. And now let's talk about Marvel. You could argue for the last 5 to 6 years, they've been on nothing but the downtrend, right? A lot of movies and shows that haven't hit well with the customer, the viewing consumer. Disney Plus subscriptions are kind of shaky. And overall, they've lost good faith in a sense. And so everything is about recency. What has happened recently? With DC, you have, I guess you could say, an old set of films, right? And a saga that didn't perform as the way Warner Brothers wanted it to perform. Did it necessarily lose money? Not really, but it didn't do what Warner Brothers did for acquiring that property that they've owned for a while now. And for them to do a hard reboot like they did after Superman Returns, of course, Warner Brothers wanted more for the money that they invested, correct? And so not every film was bad in the DCEU. It's just towards the end, things started to fall apart bad. I'd say things really started to fall apart around Batman v Superman and gradually just got worse and worse and worse. You did have some hits in there, but towards the end, it was really bad. This is around the Blue Beetle era. You also had Shazam 2. You had Black Adam, which actually is not really a bad film. And then you had The Flash, which we're not even going to talk about. And last but not least, Aquaman 2 towards the end to close out everything. But you did have a string of hits in there. You did have your Wonder Womans. You did have your Aquaman 1. And so that pretty much covers the DCEU and what DC was actually trying to get away from with this reboot of Superman. Now, Superman is a hard reboot into a different direction, a more comic book direction for James Gunn's DC universe at this point in time. With Marvel, you had shows like She-Hulk, you had shows like Agatha, more recently Ironheart, films like Captain America, Brave New World, which had a troubled production, Thunderbolts, and so on and so forth. Overall, when you're looking at what's been happening recently, Jurassic World has had less baggage to deal with. And so it makes sense to ask why people went to go watch the movie as they did. You're not walking in with a negative feeling or, as far as, I guess, product, a negative connotation with the product itself. You're going in knowing that this is a fresh take. It's exciting. It's about dinosaurs. It's not going to be something that's too depthy. You're not going to have to do much homework because it is a reboot. I mean, it's cool to be familiar with the Jurassic Park and Jurassic world itself, but it's not something you have to deep dive on. With Marvel, they made everything homework. With DC, everything was bad towards the end. And so with Marvel making everything homework and the shows and movies not being that good, it really hurts. Even the Fantastic Four is a good movie, which I think it is. It really hurts the box office there because they've lost good faith. And as far as DC, this is a hard reboot for a franchise and company in DC Studios that has lost good faith a while back. And so it's all fresh for those two. Therefore, the hill is a lot steeper to climb. And so Jurassic World Rebirth gets the win in that department of familiarity. Hope I broke that down well for you. Let's go to the next topic. First to market. Jurassic World obviously was first to market. This is going to tie into another angle I have that I'm going to talk about within this video, but a little later. First to market. When you're first to release, you kind of get to play the game that you want to play. You've set the game up, right? You're the first one with the first impression. Everything follows after you. And I think with this film releasing on the holiday of 4th of July, it was a great time slot, to be honest, even though Superman was following behind it about 9 days. I believe Jurassic World Rebirth actually opened on the 2nd of July and had the whole weekend to make as much money as possible and make that first impression, which I think was solid. 5-day haul was over $300 million. It looks good. And when the press also piggybacks on that and pushes it for you, it definitely helps with word of mouth. Now, like I said, I can't judge the film for myself, but for the most part, I think people that are not familiar so much with Jurassic World, they think this movie's pretty solid, an 8 out of 10. People that are familiar with Jurassic World said maybe a 6, 6.5. But once again, like I said, the score doesn't really matter with this type of film. You're there for the dinosaurs. As long as they provide dinosaurs, cool action sequences, good scores, cinematography's on point, you don't really care about anything else, and that is a reason why this film is doing so well and better than the other two. Now, with Superman, obviously it released a few days after, 9 days to be specific, sandwiched in between Jurassic World Rebirth and the Fantastic Four First Steps. And so I think overall, Superman has done a decent job being able to compete, being sandwiched in. Really a hard reboot, like I said. It's very tough to convince people. The fact that people have repeat watched Superman, and I'd say the sentiment is positive around Superman based off what James Gunn and Peter Safran has done, I think is a win in itself. And it really generates that feeling of optimism for what James Gunn is going to do in the future. Definitely excited to see. At the end of the day, though, this is still a business. $700 million is the line for me when it comes to Superman being that hit that you want it to be. Obviously, they say about $562 million is the break even, but you don't want to be breaking even with your 1B tier superhero. And so with Superman coming out second, a little behind the ball of Jurassic World Rebirth, but different enough in genres to get people to maybe look into Superman a bit. Another problem for these films, Superman and the Fantastic Four First Steps, is the fact that a lot of people spent a lot of money on Jurassic World Rebirth. Obviously, this film does have legs and there's repeat watching, but think about this. Family film with dinosaurs in it. You're going to get the kids out of the house. You're going to beat the heat. You're going to pay for 4 tickets and probably popcorn, candy, and soda. You're looking at about $150 at the theater. When people spend that much, they're going to be reluctant to go and spend that same amount just 9 days later. And so I think that does have an effect as well. Really just first to market and competition. Obviously, we have Fantastic Four. They were third. They had about a 2-week gap in between the Superman release and obviously their release, and about a 3-week gap, maybe even longer than that, between Jurassic World Rebirth and the Fantastic Four First Steps. The problem with First Steps is it's third to market. And so being third in line really does hurt you when there's a lot of competition and when the competition is raking in the money because the people that watch the movies actually think they are good. And so you're kind of seeing the effects of that right now. I do believe that the Fantastic Four First Steps doesn't have any real direct competition for the next 2 weeks in theater, but there is some money being taken away from the film with the Naked Gun releasing. Obviously, Together just came out. You have Weapons coming out this following week. And obviously, Jurassic World Rebirth and Superman are still making a little bit of money here and there. And so I think being first to market really helped Jurassic World Rebirth when it comes to this battle of July. Next topic. And this one will be a quick one because we kind of touched on it already. Dinosaurs and kids. Kids are going to like dinosaurs regardless, ladies and gents. Kids like dogs too, and they like their superheroes, but dinosaurs are an easy win. Like I said, this ties into familiarity. You know, when you're a young kid, you play with dinosaur toys, you see dinosaurs in cartoon form mostly, and you become akin to these dinosaurs, right? They're almost like pets in a sense that don't really exist anymore. And so when kids get an experience that's a live action adaptation of a dinosaur that they maybe played with in their younger ages, it just brings back nostalgia for them. It's something that they have to see. And so I think that was a real big reason for Jurassic World Rebirth doing so well at this point in time. Dinosaurs and kids, it checks out every time. Like I said, Jurassic World capitalizes with this on a high level. Yes, it may not be a film for the adults anymore, but the kids are going to be begging you to go watch this film. And I'm not going to say all the adults. There are some adults that remember the nostalgia from Jurassic Park Lost World, maybe even 3, which wasn't well liked overall, but the nostalgia is still there for these type of films for even the younger adults that are familiar with the content. And so, like I said, that dynamic works every time. Doesn't matter who's starring in the film. Sure, if you have a couple A-listers, that helps with promotion and marketing, but we're not there for that. We're there for the dinosaurs, and kids love dinosaurs. It's just historically proven. Next topic, tying in once again with the bad press regarding Superman and the Fantastic Four First Step. So a couple things. With Superman, you had the Snyder Bros, or should I say Snyderverse Bros. They pretty much talked bad about this film even months before it released, calling David Corenswet an imposter Superman. He's not Henry Cavill. And so, you know, that can hurt a film's performance overall and perspective on the film. You have to remember, ladies and gents, people are easily swayed. And when you have bad optics for your film, it definitely has an impact. I think Superman has done quite well just trying to reestablish itself as a new DC at this point in time. And I think maneuvering through the negativity has been tough at times for the staff over there, but they figure out a way to do it gracefully, not lashing out at people that don't see their vision like they see it. I think they've handled it well overall. Like I said, it's not just the Snyderverse guys, right? And I can understand why they feel the way they feel. Henry Cavill didn't get the best shake at the end of that deal there, but behind the scenes, James Gunn, Peter Safran, and Henry Cavill had a conversation, and I think it ended well, and I think there's going to be a place for Henry Cavill later on. James Gunn seems to understand what happened with that situation between Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers. I think if he does find another role for Henry Cavill too, that will get a lot of people happy. So I think you might have some of those Snyderverse guys say, oh, you know what? Oh, maybe it's not all bad here. We'll give it another shot because at least he gave our guy a shot. So I think that'd be interesting as well. We're not even talking about the YouTubers yet that constantly said negative things about Superman before the release of the film. Once again, when these people have huge followings, that has an effect as well. And I think DC Studios, James Gunn, Peter Safran, everybody involved in Superman has figured out a way to still be positive about everything and still make the best of the situation that they're in. And the film was a good film overall. To me, arguably the best Superman movie of all time. Comic bookish, like I want Superman to be. And I think a lot of people agree with me. Not the best movie overall. I've told you multiple times. I think it's an 8. And I think it's something to build off of. I'm very interested to see what happens with Supergirl, but this is a good start. Now, for Marvel Studios, the same thing with Fantastic Four, to be quite honest. Once the hate on Superman didn't quite work, they all shifted to Fantastic Four. They were talking about Fantastic Four a while before as well. And so, like I said, the negativity surrounding the film before the film came out does not help the film. Obviously, Fantastic Four is like B-tier Marvel as well, and so it does have a solid cast. The film is a solid film. I gave it a good score as well, just a smidge under Superman, so basically damn near a tie. But with that being said, still a lot of negativity from the YouTubers. Pedro Pascal hasn't helped with his comments, his politically charged comments. That doesn't help as well. As I spoke on earlier, Marvel Studios having lost good faith with the audience and the consumer doesn't help. So it's really a concoction of negativity that the Fantastic Four has had to fight against. Not only against the press negativity and just people in general being turned off from Marvel Studios products, but the competition with Superman, which is a good film as well, and Jurassic World Rebirth, which has the dinosaur button that they can press at any time. And so those are the two things that I think plagued these films. Bad optics. Some got through, some didn't. Like I said, the verdict and the jury is still out on the Fantastic Four First Steps. Hopefully this film makes money. I said this film needs to make $600 million. The break even would be $500 million. But you don't want to just break even on these type of films. Like I said, they're trying to arbitrage everything they can into Spider-Man 4, which I think is going to make $850 million in its sleep. I would not at all be surprised if Brand New Day makes about $1.2 billion at the box office. And what are they going to do with that? They're going to take that positivity and they're going to throw it into Avengers Doomsday, because that is their big moment to try to recapture what they had about 8 to 9 years ago. And so with that being said, I think I covered enough of the negativity. Let's get into some more positive things and some different dynamics into why Jurassic World Rebirth is winning right now. Now, along with Jurassic World Rebirth being first to market, like I stated earlier, the holiday release. This is something that you can really arbitrage on going into the release of a huge film. Universal Pictures knew what they were doing with this scheduling to get that release in the middle of the weekend and get that 5-day take was great. And then you can tie it into 4th of July. Hey, ladies and gents, you like fireworks, hot dogs, barbecues, hamburgers, and beer? How about some dinosaurs? Get the kids out of there before the holiday. It worked perfectly for this film. They really did capitalize on that holiday. I would actually say moving forward, any film that intends to make about $500 to $800 million should focus on holiday releases. It makes a lot of sense. We've seen this before, and I think it worked out perfectly for Jurassic World Rebirth. Next is budget issues. Funny enough, most of these films are in close proximity when it comes to budget. Apparently, they say Jurassic World Rebirth is between $180 and $225 million. Superman's at $225 million, and the Fantastic Four First Steps is slated at $200 million. So I'd say pretty close in proximity there. Problem with budget, we've talked about this with films like Mission Impossible. Right? The budget has exploded over a 20-year period of time, I'd say, right? When did the superhero thing become a thing, right? You want to say, when it really became a thing. We want to say around, I guess, after 2005, that's when it kind of started to take hold. And then we've seen the graph of how it just gradually got more popular. Now you're getting those ensemble films, right? Maybe the ensemble piece is the way to go. It's a good way to stuff the film up with characters that people are familiar with, and it gives you a chance to really cast that net just a bit wider, right? When you have these films of this magnitude, you want to get as many people as possible. If it's limited to 1 or 2 characters, some audience members may see that as boring. But if you have 8 characters that are all interesting in their own respective way, and you can figure out a way to intricately tie them in together to create balance in the film, it really helps overall, and I think that's what you're going to be seeing a lot of. Shoot, we just talked about Spider-Man Brand New Day. How many cool characters are in that? that, some characters we don't even know about yet. Spider-Man himself, which can carry a film. You have the Punisher, John Bernthal. You have Mark Ruffalo coming back as the Hulk. And potentially Mr. Negative, I hope Black Cat and Boomerang, going to be a grounded film with a lot of characters. Look at No Way Home, multiple Spider-Mans, multiple characters from other Spider-Man films, even Spider-Man universes. Ensemble pictures seem to be a way to garner interest. If you think about the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World films, those are ensemble films. Some characters may be more important to the story than others or more popular, but overall, it's more than one or two people on the screen. It's about 4 to 5 people, and then you always have a faction of other characters that support. So once again, that is an ensemble piece. But the fact of the matter is, with an ensemble piece, that means the salaries expand and the budget gets bigger. I think we need to bring these budgets down for all of these types of films. I believe if you can make a film for, I want to say 165 to 180, that's a good place to be. Once you cross that $200 million mark, you're in territory where it's going to be extremely risky to make your money back, especially when you have a lot of competition surrounding your film, and I think that plagued Superman and the Fantastic Four: First Steps. At this point in time, I think Jurassic World Rebirth has eclipsed $750 million on a budget of $180 million. Right now, Superman's sitting at about $551 last time I checked on a budget of $225, and the Fantastic Four: First Steps sitting at about $368.7 million on a budget of $200 million. And so all of them ensemble pieces, all of them releasing in the same month of July. Now, second to last topic, ladies and gents, before I go into the dynamic of the current box offices, which I just referenced right now, Jurassic World Rebirth has less to prove to the audience. This ties into everything I've talked about. It's the antithesis of everything, right? You have familiarity in your pocket. You have dinosaurs and kids. You have the release date. You have the strategic release date. And you have a budget that is tame compared to the others, even though it is close in proximity with the total of the others. But like I said, even though Jurassic World is a hard reboot, less pressure because it doesn't have a terrible connotation like the DCEU had or Marvel Studios at this point in time. You're not looking at it, rolling your eyes, saying, oh, another superhero film. I do think superhero fatigue has set in. Do I think superhero films can be profitable? I can, but it's really crazy when you think about it. When I'm talking about DC, I'm not talking about Elseworld at this point in time. That'd be Matt Reeves' Batman. The Penguin is part of that, and Clayface was going to be part of that, but James Gunn figured out a way to get him into his DC universe at this point in time. You take those away, who are the properties in DC Studios right now that can make money on huge budgets? It's really only Superman. Everything else is a risk at this point in time. Obviously, you're trying to get back good faith in the product and the superhero genre. For Marvel Studios, let's be honest, what properties do they have that can make money off budgets of $250 million? Spider-Man, which is part of Sony Pictures' deal with them, but their name is on it, so it helps them out. And then Avengers, your big ensemble piece. Those are really, at this point in time, I think, the only two properties that Marvel Studios has that can be looked at as slam dunks. And even we have to see what happens with Avengers Doomsday. A lot of characters, no final script, shooting on the fly, pushbacks already. So we're going to see. But I think just off the curiosity factor, that film's probably going to make $350 million opening weekend. They say the budget's around $300 to $400 million. It's climbing up. A lot of people in this film, we talked about this before with the ensemble. It's cool to have the ensemble, but that ensemble does have some baggage that comes along with it. So you got to be firing on all cylinders. I wouldn't be surprised if Spider-Man 4 makes more money than Avengers Doomsday, to be quite honest. But at this point, that's all Marvel Studios has at this point. With Universal Pictures, are they going to make the money that they made on the previous Jurassic World franchise? I don't think so. But if they can make $800 million on these $180 million budgets, they're going to keep pushing these films. And with this film being a hard reboot, getting people to watch it and making $750, it's not even done yet. Getting $750, I think the next one will make even more than that. So a positive place for them to be in at this point. And as I said, the pressure continues to mount on these two superhero genre films, right? Superman and the Fantastic Four: First Steps. Everybody trying to arbitrage the momentum into the next superhero flick, hoping that it pans out and they can make money off their ideas. Going to be very interesting to see where we're at in the next couple of years with these two studios and the genre in general. Now, last, let's talk about the box office for all three of these films as it it stands right now. So as of tonight, Jurassic World Rebirth is sitting at $766 million at the global box office. We already talked about the budget, so I don't need to discuss that anymore. Let's look into Superman at this point in time. Let's see if the numbers still ring true as what I saw earlier. So Superman is sitting at $551.3 million. And the Fantastic Four First Steps is sitting at a cool $368.7 million. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen the movie twice. I know multiple people that have seen this movie twice, and even some have watched it 3 times. And so it's not that people don't like this film. The film is a good film, but like I said, all these factors that I talk about could be plaguing this film overall, and it's a real shame. But Marvel Studios has to look itself in the mirror and say, we know why this did happen. As far as Superman, I saw that movie twice as well. I've seen repeat viewership of that film as well. And I haven't seen the Jurassic World Rebirth film, don't plan on it, but I know there's repeat watching for that to get to those numbers of 760 million plus. And so we got the numbers right there. Jurassic World Rebirth, 766 million, ladies and gents. Superman, 551.3 million. And the Fantastic Four First Steps, 368.7 million. I was hoping to see 380 by the end of the weekend, but they didn't hit that. And Superman 2, I was thinking about 590, 600. Seemed to have hit a wall this weekend. And so very interesting there, ladies and gents. Just some perspective on the box office and the differential between all 3 films at this point in time. Like I said, still early for the Fantastic Four First Steps. Still going to be in theaters for another, I'd say at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And so we'll see if it continues to make some money here and there and eventually cross that $500 million mark, maybe even $550 million plus. And I'm curious as far as Superman as well, too. Where does it top out at before it goes on VOD? I know it's going to be leaving, I don't want to say the theaters. It's still going to be in theaters, but you're going to be able to stream it on about 2 weeks from now. I believe it's like the 14th of August. Don't quote me on that. Please go look for yourself. But I believe it's mid-August. Let's just say mid-August, ladies and gents. So Superman will be on VOD then, and I'm sure Jurassic World Rebirth will be following it soon if it's not already going to be up. Makes a lot of sense, but we'll just have to see. And so, ladies and gents, I think I covered all the bases in this battle of July. Definitely an interesting battle, and I think this summer has had a lot of competition, probably more competition than I can remember in the last couple years as far as big films with big budgets competing with each other at the same time within the same month. And even if you take a look into films that came out before the month of July, June, May, competition has been steep even since those months, and so everybody's trying to make as much money as possible and get people into theaters. Good time for the cinemas. They're making a lot of money on concessions. Good for them. But the studios are having to find ways to be able to get people to watch their movie in particular. And so, ladies and gents, I really hope you enjoyed this conversation on why Jurassic World Rebirth is beating Superman and the Fantastic Four First Steps in theaters at this point in time. Doesn't mean that these movies are bad movies, just a lot of competition. Like I said, Superman was good, the Fantastic Four was good. Jurassic World Rebirth, can't talk about it, didn't watch it, but I've heard mixed things about that. Doesn't matter. All these films are in competition. Everybody's trying to make a buck. And so I'm glad I got to do this conversation. It was something that was on my mind, kind of spur of the moment, to be quite honest. I was just thinking, now that we're in the second week of the Fantastic Four First Steps, I've done multiple videos talking about a versus between 2 films at once. Let's do a versus between all 3 films and really talk about the dynamic of the theatrical run for all of these films. It really encompasses the conversations that I've been having for a few months. And so I'm glad you got to the end of this video. If you did, please share this video. Chime down below what you think about this film. Let me know if you watched these films. It doesn't matter which one. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if you watched these films multiple times as well. I want to hear your thoughts on that. Like hearing from real people. Like this video. Share this video with some family members, friends, and colleagues. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let them know to subscribe as well, and ring the bell for notifications to stay updated with me, Neff, and get cool think pieces like this. Watch some videos in the catalog as well. Definitely informational and entertaining. With that being said, be safe. It's Neff signing off.